Morning she called to tell me the rent was overdue. I was sitting in my truck outside a Tim Hortons on Dundas Street, watching the snow come down in that slow, heavy way it does in January when it means business. I had a large double doing cold in the cuff holder and my phone buzzing on the seat beside me. I looked at her name on the screen for a long moment before I picked up. Dad, the rent, it's 3 days late. I said nothing. The automatic transfer didn't go through. Did you set it up wrong again? I set it up wrong. I'd been transferring money into that account every first of the month for 2 years without missing once, and somehow, this time, I had set it up wrong. I'll look into it, I said. She hung up without saying goodbye. That was nothing new. What was new? What was still sitting in my chest like a stone I couldn't swallow was what I'd found out 4 days earlier. My son and his wife had gotten married in October, in a vineyard outside Niagara-on-the-Lake, with 60 guests and a dinner that probably cost more than my first car. I spent 34 years in construction management. Is how to read a Stuckers. My brother forwarded it without thinking. A picture someone had posted publicly. My son in a navy suit I'd never seen. His wife in ivory lace. Both of them laughing in the golden afternoon light between rows of vines. I had sat with that photo open on my phone for a very long time. My son is 34 years old. His wife, I'll call her his wife now, I suppose, since that's what she is 31. They've been living in a condo in Mississauga for 2.5 years. A condo I own. I bought the building in 2009, rolled out the bad years, watched it become worth something real. The unit they live in, 2-bedroom southwest corner, good light. I'd kept it for them. Not charged them market rent. Charged them $1,400 a month, when comparable units were going for $2,300. I told myself I was helping them get on their feet. 34 years old. Still getting on his feet. His wife doesn't work. Or rather she works occasionally. Some kind of freelance social media consulting that I've never fully understood, and that seems to generate no income anyone can point to. My son works in sales for a software company downtown. He makes decent money. Not great money, but decent. Enough, certainly. Like 2 adults in a subsidized condo should not be calling their 62-year-old father about overdue rent. But that was always the pattern with us. I would pull back slightly and he would call. I would hesitate on a request and his wife would text me with that particular tone she has. Equal parts entitlement and wounded patience, as though I were the unreasonable one for not immediately writing a check. I want to be honest about my role in this. I've had a lot of time to think about it, and I know I am not innocent. My wife, his mother, passed away 11 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, very fast, the way that one always is. She was 53. After she died, I think I spent a decade trying to compensate, throwing money at my son because I didn't know how to talk to him, because the grief sat between us like furniture we couldn't move around. I bought him a car at 25. I co-signed his first apartment. When he got together with his wife and she made it clear she had certain expectations about how life should look, I didn't push back. I told myself I was being generous. I think I was being afraid. There's a difference. My brother, he's 5 years younger than me. Retired now, lives out in Abbotsford. He'd been telling me for years. You're not helping him, you're covering for him. There's a difference between a safety net and a hammock. I'd always waved him off. Easy to say when it's not your kid. But the photo. I kept coming back to the photo. 60 guests. A vineyard. Niagara-on-the-Lake in October, which is not a cheap time to book a venue there. I know because I priced it once, years ago, when I had a vague idea of renewing vows with a woman I was briefly seeing. I'd looked at the numbers and put my phone away. You don't do Niagara-on-the-Lake in October on a budget. Someone had paid for that wedding. And it wasn't me. And I hadn't been invited. The official reason. Delivered by my son in a voicemail I still have saved. I don't know why I saved it. Some instinct. Was that they'd wanted something small and intimate. Just close friends. No family drama. He said this with a kind of practiced casualness, the way you deliver a line you've rehearsed. I recognized the phrasing because it wasn't his phrasing. It was hers. I wasn't angry. That surprised me. I'd expected to be angry when something like this eventually happened. Because on some level, I think I always knew something like this would eventually happen. But what I felt instead was something quieter and colder. Like a door closing very gently on a room I'd been standing in for years. I called my brother that night. He picked up on the second ring, which meant he was awake and probably watching hockey. Did you know? I asked. He was quiet for a moment. I saw the photo same time you did. I'm sorry. I should have called before I forwarded it. Don't worry about it. Are you okay? I told him I didn't know yet. He said he'd drive out if I needed him. I told him I'd be fine, and then we talked for a while about nothing important. The leaves, the weather in BC, a property he was thinking about selling. It was exactly what I needed. By the time I hung up, I had made a decision. Not an angry decision, a clear one. I called my accountant the next morning. Then I called a lawyer, a real estate and family law firm I'd used a few times over the years. Good people, no nonsense. I explained the situation. They explained my options. In Ontario, when you own a property and rent it to tenants, even family, there are proper procedures to follow. I wasn't going to cut corners on that. I was going to do this correctly, legally, calmly. The lawyer drafted a proper notice. 1,400 a month was well below market, which meant technically they were receiving a financial benefit I was choosing to provide. I was within my rights to stop providing it, with proper notice. I also stopped the automatic rent transfer, not accidentally, deliberately. So when my daughter-in-law called me about the overdue rent, sitting in my truck outside Tim Hortons with my cold coffee, I was ready. I'll look into it, I said. And then I went home and I waited. She called again 2 days later. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was longer this time, more pointed. The rent was now 5 days overdue. Was there a problem with my account? Did I need her to send me the banking information again? My son called that evening. He sounded less certain than usual, like he could sense something had shifted but couldn't locate exactly what. Dad? Hey, sorry to bother you, I know you're busy. I'm not that busy, I said. Right. So the rent. Vanessa said she called you. We're a bit short this month and why are you short? Silence. I mean, we had some expenses. The wedding and then we went to... Tell me about the wedding, I said. The silence that followed was the longest one. I could hear him breathing. We were going to tell you, he said finally. When? It happened fast. We wanted something quiet. 60 guests is not quiet, I said. 60 guests in Niagara-on-the-Lake in October is not quiet. That's a wedding. That's a real wedding. That's a real wedding. With a venue and a caterer and probably a photographer. Who paid for that? Vanessa's parents helped. Her parents. I let that sit. Her parents, who you see regularly, who were invited, helped pay for a wedding I wasn't told about. Dad, I'm not angry, I said. And I meant it. I want you to understand that. I want you to yell at you. I'm calling to tell you that the rent situation has changed. You'll be receiving a letter this week from my lawyer. It will explain everything properly. Your lawyer. His voice changed. What does that mean? It means I've decided to make some changes to how I manage my properties. That unit has been under market for 2.5 years. That's going to be corrected, or the unit will be made available for other tenants. Everything will be done properly by the book. You will have proper notice. Dad, you can't afford market rent on that place. I know, I said. That's something you need to figure out. He started to say something else, and I could hear her voice in the background, sharp and low, coaching him. I recognized the pattern. I'd been watching it for years. I love you, I said. I love you, I said. I want that to be clear. This isn't about love. It's about a decision I should have made a long time ago. I hung up. The letter arrived the following Thursday. My lawyer had been clear and professional. A formal notice of rent increase to market rate, effective in 60 days as per Ontario tenancy guidelines, with the option to vacate if the new rate wasn't feasible. All above board. All correct. My daughter-in-law called me twice that afternoon. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail that I will not repeat in detail, but the general substance was that I was being cruel, that this was not what a father does, that she had given up opportunities to be part of this family. I saved that voicemail too. My son called that evening, calmer this time, which told me they'd had a conversation and arrived at a strategy. We want to talk. Can we come over this weekend? Of course, I said. They came on Saturday. She sat on my couch with her arms crossed and her chin up, the posture of someone who has decided in advance that they are being wronged. He sat beside her and looked at the floor more than at me. She did most of the talking. She talked about how they'd been counting on my help, about how I had made promises. She used that word, promises, and was now going back on them about how the economy did impossible for young people to get ahead without support from their parents. She said this last part with a particular emphasis, like she was making a point about my failures as a father. I listened to all of it. Then I said, "You got married without telling me. We wanted something small. You got married without telling me." I said again, not louder, just steadier. "I found out from a photo. You called me 4 days after the wedding to tell me the rent was late. I've been paying your rent for 2.5 years. I bought your engagement ring. I had $18,000. She had wanted something specific. I had written the check because my son asked me to, and I didn't want to be the reason he couldn't give her what she wanted. I've thought about that check a great deal since October. I am not your enemy," I said, "but I am also no longer going to be your bank account." She looked at me like I had said something monstrous. My son looked up from the floor. For a moment, just a moment, he looked like himself. Like the boy who used to come fishing with me on the Credit River on Saturday mornings before everything got so complicated. He looked, briefly, like he understood. "Dad," he said quietly, "I'm sorry. About the wedding, we should have told you." She looked at him sharply. "I know," I said. "I appreciate that." They left 20 minutes later without resolving anything because there was nothing to resolve on my end. The letter had been sent. The clock was running. I had been clear. In the weeks that followed, my daughter-in-law tried several more approaches. She texted me an article about the cost of living in the GTA, as though I were unfamiliar with the real estate market in my own city. She called my brother, which surprised me. I hadn't known they had his number, and apparently made her case to him directly. He told her politely that it wasn't his business and called me immediately after. "She's good," he said. "I'll give her that." I didn't mean it as a compliment. My son went quiet for about 3 weeks. Then he called one evening alone, without her coaching in the background. "We're going to move," he said. "We found a place in Hamilton. It's more affordable." "That's a good choice," I said. I want you to know I'm not doing this to punish you or whatever she might have." He stopped. Started again. "I know I haven't been fair to you. I've been thinking about that." This I had not expected. "I appreciate you saying that," I said. "I don't know how things got like this." His voice was rough in the way it gets when he's trying not to show something. "Mom would have. She would have set us both straight a long time ago." That hit me somewhere I hadn't expected. He was right. She absolutely would have. She had a gentleness that was somehow also completely unbending. She could tell you that you were being an idiot without ever raising her voice, and you'd walk away feeling grateful for it. I had spent 11 years trying to fill that absence and mostly making a mess of it. She would have, I agreed. We talked for 40 minutes. Not about rent or money or lawyers, about his mother, about the fishing trips, about a camping weekend we'd taken in Algonquin when he was 12, and it rained for 3 straight days, and we'd played cards in the tent and eaten granola bars for dinner, and he thought it was the greatest thing that had ever happened. I hadn't thought about that weekend in years. They moved to Hamilton in March. I helped him load the truck. She stayed inside during most of it, appearing briefly to direct the placement of certain boxes in a way that suggested she was not yet finished being angry at me. That was all right. I wasn't looking for her forgiveness. The condo is rented now to a couple in their late 20s, both working, no connection to me except a standard lease at market rate. It's generating proper income for the first time in 2.5 years. My son and I have had dinner twice since the move. The first time was just the two of us, at a steakhouse he picked on James Street North, a good choice, unpretentious, exactly the kind of place he would have picked before he started making choices by committee. The second time, she came too. It was strained but civil. She has good manners when she chooses to use them. I don't know what happens next with the two of them. That's not mine to know. What I know is that I drive past that building on my way to my brother's sometimes, when he's in town and we meet for dinner. And I look up at the southwest corner unit with its good light, and I feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not pride exactly. Not vindication. Something quieter than both of those. Like a man who finally said what he meant. I turned 63 in April. My brother flew in from Abbotsford. We went up to Muskoka for a long weekend, rented a place on a lake, took a canoe out on the Saturday morning in the kind of cool spring air that makes you feel like everything is still possible. He brought a bottle of single malt. We sat on the dock in the evening and didn't talk much and didn't need to. My son texted that morning, "Happy birthday, Dad. I love you." 3 days later, he sent a longer message. He said he'd started talking to someone, a therapist, that he'd been doing a lot of thinking, that he wanted to be better, not just at the relationship between us, but in general, at being someone his mother would have recognized. I read it twice. Then I put the phone face down on the dock and looked out at the water for a while. I wrote back when I was ready, "I'm proud of you." That took guts. "Let's talk soon." He replied with a single word, "Deal." "I've been doing this wrong for 11 years. I don't say that to punish myself. I've done enough of that, and it helps no one. I say it because it's true, and because the truth, even when it's late, is still worth something." My wife would have sorted this out years ago, but she isn't here. So I sorted it out instead in my own way, in my own time, clumsily, with a lawyer and a formal notice and a lot of cold coffee in a Tim Hortons parking lot. It was enough. I think it was enough. I've been turning this whole thing over in my mind for a while now. The way you turn a stone in your hand until you understand the weight of it. And the thing I keep landing on isn't the anger. There wasn't much of that, which still surprises me. It's the pattern. How long a pattern can run before someone finally steps off it. I wasn't a bad father. I want to be clear about that. Not to defend myself, but because I think it matters for the story. I loved my son. I showed up. After his mother died, I kept showing up, just in the wrong ways. Writing checks instead of having hard conversations, buying things instead of building something sturdier between us. That's not a character flaw exactly. It's a failure of clarity. I couldn't see that what I thought was generosity was actually a way of avoiding the harder work. That's what I mean when I think about honesty. Not just telling the truth to other people, but having the decency to be straight with yourself. I wasn't straight with myself for a long time. I told myself I was being a good father when really I was being a comfortable one. There's a difference, and the difference costs you. The other thing I've thought about is judgment. Not the harsh kind. I've had enough of that from myself and it hasn't helped. But the tear-eyed kind, knowing when a situation has run its course. Knowing when kindness has curdled into enabling and when it's time to stop. I didn't lack love. What I lacked for a long time was the willingness to look at what I'd built and call it honestly. My son at 34, never having paid his own way, calling his aging father about overdue rent while his wife coached him from the next room. I had built that. Not alone, but I had my part in it. Seeing that clearly, without flinching, was the beginning of fixing it. And then there's the part that was hardest for me. Actually doing something about it. Not talking about it, not planning it, not calling my brother to vent about it one more time. Picking up the phone and calling the lawyer. Sending the letter. Sitting across from my daughter-in-law on my own couch and holding the line when she turned the pressure up. That took something I hadn't needed to use in a while. The years had been comfortable. Comfortable years can soften you in ways you don't notice until something forces you to find out whether you're still solid underneath. I'm glad to report I was still solid. Barely. Maybe. But enough. The photo that started all of this. My son in that navy suit, his wife in ivory lace, the Niagara vines behind them catching the October light. I still have it on my phone. I don't look at it often. But I haven't deleted it either. It reminds me that clarity, even when it arrives through hurt, is still clarity. And that it's never entirely too late to become the version of yourself that would have made the people you've lost the proudest. My wife would have gotten there faster. But I got there.